thank you very much, Jon-Claire Lee, for joining us on the Acting Vertical podcast. I'm very, very happy to have you. You are basically the man who does everything. You've been an actor, a producer, a director, a writer, stage and screen. You work as a director of Sydney Talent Company as well. So you've been nurturing talent and getting involved in building the entertainment industry from the ground up for a long time as well now. And you've done plenty of local Australian production of international productions. You're a member of every guild that I think exists. There is practically nothing that you kind of don't get involved in. So I think the value that you can bring to this conversation is wonderful in that you also have not just traditional film and entertainment experience, but you do have experience on a vertical set as well. So I'm really excited to have you. Thank you very much for taking the time. But yeah, is there anything you'd like to say about yourself that I missed there?
I think you said it all, Daniel. Thank you very much for the invitation. And I'm also the father of three daughters. So I am very much overpowered in my family. So, that's the only thing I think I can add. Four women, one guy in a house. Imagine.
And how's that dynamic at home?
They all moved out. Oh, except for my wife. She's still here.
Okay. Well, that's good. So the first question that I have for you, Jon-Claire, is a pretty broad one, and we'll focus in on kind of specific stuff as we find where the conversation takes us. I'd like to keep it open-ended, and then we'll zero in. In terms of vertical dramas and how they fit into the entertainment industry today, where do you see them kind of aligning from your perspective?
I would say it's like AI coming into your life. It's like a real new explosion of possibilities, for the entertainment industry. So it comes with a lot of fear and excitement. So my feeling is that I always encourage our actors to go and try new things. So from building up their portfolio using short films, student films, independent features. And so when verticals come along, I just really encourage our actors, to try them, because it's almost like you get an intensive course in acting under extreme pressure, which is a lot of like the old days when we do student films, right? There's not enough time, not enough resources, but you have to try to do the best you can to create a good show reel for yourself. So I think the same thing applies for our actors. I encourage them to go and try it so that they can try different kinds of characters, have lots of fun, be under a lot of pressure, and create the best work that they can.
I love that response. I personally agree with a lot of what you've said there. I think the thing you mentioned there about how it presents an opportunity, but then also that opportunity creates a lot of fear. I feel like that's true in every industry where anything gets revolutionized, where there's a big change. My background before acting was accounting, and a great example I can bring in from that industry that predates my existence is when we moved from paper ledgers to using software and code and using like a platform like Xero or MYOB. And there was a lot of resistance to change when that first happened. People didn't trust calculators. They didn't trust how can we trust the technology? What if it's kind of used wrong? I'd prefer to just write it down myself. But if you kind of didn't jump on that bandwagon quick enough, nowadays, if you were to try and do your accounting by paper, it's going to cost you a lot more money, and it's going to be a lot slower, and you're going to have more capacity for error as well. So I think it's interesting that you raise the opportunity with fear. I feel like those always do come hand in hand. And if anything, it means that fear is a bit of an indicator of how great the opportunity could be. If it's scary, it's worth doing.
I think, because it is I would say still a new approach to filmmaking, right? So both the directors, the producers, and the artists that are involved are still learning, and experimenting and trying to find out what is the best format that will appeal to the audience, make some money for the producers, and also be creative. So it's difficult. So I think we're still exploring that, and we're still, in that stage of experimentation and growth.
I do agree with that as well. And I think even over the last 2 years or 2.5 years since verticals have kind of been around in the Australian industry, we've seen massive changes in the production process, in terms of the scripts and the themes as well, in the understanding of just the talent of how to shoot for short form, because short form content is very, very different, right? Trying to squeeze an entire episode arc with an introduction, an establishment, and then the complication that happens, and then a plot twist at the end. Merging all of that into 60 seconds is a massive challenge for everyone involved in the scripting, the talent, every kind of person in the process. So the way that producers are learning and experimenting to do that, all the while working with a completely different aspect ratio, because obviously these things are vertical, right? It is actually, to me, very impressive how the industry has kind of worked through and developed so far. And I think that the point you've made there about how they're still in development is a big one. I think that this industry is still a baby kind of sunrise industry, and it has so much growth potential in creativity, both on kind of the talent side, but also on the directing, the producing, the story side. There's so much potential to kind of grow it in the near future, which is really exciting. I'd like to ask a follow up on something you said earlier. So you said that something that you like to do is encourage actors to try new things
Mm.
and to kind of go out there, experiment, learn about their acting, and try new characters was something you mentioned as well. There is some stigma that I'll bring into the conversation about verticals and how perhaps they are a lower tier content and something that actually could be harmful for an actor. What are your thoughts on whether verticals could present any harm to an actor's portfolio?
I don't think so. I think that actors deal with casting directors all the time and try to present good work, to build their profile. So I think out of 70 episodes that probably comprise one story, in a vertical drama, right? I think actors hopefully can get probably a few good episodes, from that whole body of work. And from that, they can show casting directors a variety of emotions, like from romantic, to troubled, to, resolution of trouble and happiness at the end or whatever. So that this arc of emotional changes, I think, really should impress casting directors. And I think this is especially for actors who are beginning in their career, and where we try to work on student films, independent films, and now we have the possibility of working on verticals. Uh, if there's a stigma, I think uh, I think don't let that stop you, because I think it is important that you try everything. And then if it comes out really nicely, then I think that also will impress your casting directors, in Australia, and make them become much more open-minded about looking at vertical dramas as part of an actor's portfolio.
I 100% agree with what you've said
Mm.
there. As a vertical actor myself, I've obviously kind of jumped into the deep end in terms of already made that commitment that if there was a harm, it's a harm I'm willing to kind of risk for the sake of growing my career, growing my skills within the vertical space. And I think from my perspective, to add to what you've said there, I think that the vertical space is a great place to learn and to practice. And I think that it's kind of like working at a, and I hope I'm not offending anyone by saying this, but it's kind of like when you do your first job. If you work at McDonald's, for example, McDonald's is like not really somewhere that you would consider staying for your whole career. Perhaps maybe you want to go into finance, or maybe you want to go into psychology or something later. but you might, for a first job with no skills and when you're still in school, work at McDonald's, and that's a pretty respectable kind of first job. The value that you get out of that, having McDonald's on the resume, is that it shows that you're hardworking, it shows that you're driven, and it also shows that you're willing to put yourself out there and learn something so you can obtain skills that you might use in a role kind of later down the line. So I see verticals in that similar respect, in that if I were to see a vertical on someone's resume, I know that they have worked really hard on a project where they had limited resources, they were probably given the script very last minute. All these things you hear about why verticals are a challenge, that's actually something that I would then apply as a bit of bonus respect towards someone who's worked on a project like that if I were casting them in a kind of bigger project. It gives me that proof of concept that if they can survive and still want to be an actor after a challenging set experience like a vertical, that then if I give them, shall we say, ideal conditions or closer to ideal conditions, I trust that they'll be able to work even better. That's my perspective on
I agree. I think whether you're working on a vertical, um, a multi-million-dollar movie, or a drama series, there are some wonderful directors, there are terrible directors, there are terrible working situations, and then there are wonderful locations to shoot at. So there's no guarantee that because you are in $1 million commercial, or TV drama or series, that the experience is great. And in each of these experiences, it's what you make it. And when you go into a vertical, you know that you probably only have 10 days to shoot the 70 episodes.
it. If you get 10. If you get 10. I would say sometimes lately there's been quite a few, anywhere between 5 and 7 is becoming the recent
Yeah.
average.
I was just trying to be optimistic.
Sorry, I interrupted. Please continue.
No, I understand what you're saying, but I think you go in there, with your eyes open, and you say, okay, this is the challenge. What can I do? What can I prepare beforehand, so that I will go in there and do the job well and make myself proud of it. And I think that's really important. So when you go in there and you know that I love the character, I love the emotions I have to go through, I'll just do my best preparation and have lots of fun. Even though I will lack sleep, I will be in terrible situations. I will get very upset at the director. I will get very upset at myself because I didn't have enough time to do one more take. But that's show business, isn't it?
That's show business.
You
Yeah.
never get enough takes to make it perfect. So I think take up the challenge, everybody, and give it a try. And it's not only for beginning actors, because I think even experienced actors who maybe have done more stage, or even actors who've done TV series, I think it's good for them to experience this something totally new where the blocking, because it's vertical, and where the shooting speed is lightning fast, is something that will just, wow, just make them come alive and say, wow, I've never experienced this before. But I would like to learn the skill, and it's part of your repertoire in the future to shoot, lightning fast, whatever project that might be. And you just have to be prepared for it.
So you've touched on a few things that I'd love to delve deeper into. There, you spoke a lot just now about how the shooting experience is lightning fast to anything else that an actor might expect on a set. In terms of the big differences between acting on a vertical drama set as opposed to any other set, obviously, as you mentioned, you never really know what you're walking into regardless of the scale. But what advice would you give a actor, maybe a beginner, maybe an experienced actor who's never done a vertical drama before? What are the key things for that actor to think about so they can prepare before they go on their first vertical drama set?
Actors are very probably have a lot of more experience doing horizontal films, right, and also stage work, so they know what the blocking is like. on those situations. Whereas in verticals, a blocking will be completely different. Because, for example, like in films, we often have maybe like a conference scene or a seminar scene where people are in rows and rows and rows, and so you need a lot of extras, to fill that screen. But actually, in a vertical, you probably need vertical rows of people, and there's probably only about 4 people in a row, but maybe 5 or 6 rows, right? Whereas in a horizontal film, you need like 3 rows of 30 people, to fill that thing. So I think it's important for actors to view verticals, on YouTube and other platforms before they go into it, and just to say, oh, that's what probably, the blocking will be like, so we'll have to put people in front of each other or behind each other versus facing each other across the screen. So once you understand that basic concept, when the director tells you to do this and do that, you say, I understand. I understand. Okay. And then that will just make your experience so much not frustrating, because why am I standing behind the other actor? And also I think when you go on a set like that, you have to do a lot on your own, because the director, the producer, the set designer, and everybody is so busy trying to keep up the schedule. You have to be so prepared with your character, with what your objectives are in the scene, what you want. So when you go in there, you can get it done in 2 takes if you're lucky.
Well, I would argue that the one take wonder concept applies a lot to verticals.
Yeah.
Many times it'll be the first take. You're lucky. You're almost treating the wide shot as the rehearsal. That becomes just the master shot is kind of a rehearsal, and then by the time it gets to your close up, that's just it's go time. One take, maybe 2 if you really get like lucky with the scheduling and timing. But yeah, I do agree with you that you have to bring, as an actor, you bring your character there, and you've already made those kind of objective analysis decisions before you even begin. And I think that being hands-on as an actor and just the way I like to think about it is it's assuming that you're right. So I'll make a choice and I'll be like, okay, I think my character will pick up this cup at this point. And you obviously are working with the director, but you can help the director in having some rough idea of how you might be blocking or how you might act in that moment or what your character is feeling, because there's not time to go through each individual beat, because there might be, say, 12 beats or 12 moments in that episode, and you can't ask questions about just checking, is my character angry or is he sad here? You can't ask that question over and over because there is no time. So you might be right, you might be wrong, but that's acting. And I think that spontaneity and that responsibility the actor holds in verticals is actually a really challenging but fun and really rewarding exercise that you get out of vertical dramas as well.
I think because, for example, in our vertical piece, I mean, we did a lot of auditioning for actors, so we really went through, a great group of actors to find the best actors that will fit the characters, the look, and be able to do changes and, give us what we want as soon as possible, as you say, So I think, I hope that the vertical dramas that actors will get more and more involved in, they trust their instincts, and also that the directors will trust them, because I think that's what this kind of format shooting requires, that you trust each other and then you trust your instincts to make the best scene possible, for those moments.
I very much agree. I think the trust, the communication that happens between the team, between the actor and the director, between the director and the producer and the platform, even like all the communication, the biggest thing that destroys a production schedule is when you have to go back and change things after you've already done it. So if, say, the scene was shot wrong because the script changed and no one was notified, things like that. Reshoots or any kind of miscommunication that happens down the line, that is the best way to like ruin your production schedule, because as you mentioned, it's already very, very tight. So I think communication and respectful, like trusting communication, I think is super important. For example, the director says to the actor, we need it done this way. The actor needs to trust that that works inside the vision, and there isn't time for the actor, maybe like they can be like, oh, I'm not sure about that, but you can't have that full kind of discussion. It has to very much be the director just kind of almost orders the actor and the actor makes it work. I think is how it goes in verticals sometimes. You balance it as much as you can, and if you have the time, you've got the time, and that's a great thing. But I do, from an actor's perspective, there's been many times where a director has said a note to me that I've disagreed with. And my character in my head, the choices I've made, the way that I read the scene, I was like, oh, I don't think that that's what it's going for. And I might really want to have that conversation and hash it out over 10, 20 minutes of discussion and why, what's my objective, but he was doing this there and the script doesn't make sense because of this reason. But sometimes I think you do have to just let go. And even if it doesn't feel right or true to the character, sometimes you just have to trust that the vision that is being communicated to you is correct. And I think that's a challenge for some actors as well. And it's an ongoing challenge for me to let go and trust the team's kind of decision there.
Yeah, I think what you bring up is very interesting. It's like, why am I picking up this book at this moment? I don't understand. I don't want to pick up the book, but that's written. So I think the job for the actor is to make it work for you.
Make it work.
Right?
Absolutely.
Make it work for you. And I think also it's quite a challenge because a lot of the films, these verticals are like maybe the producer is from China or America or Korea or another country. So it's actually like cross-cultural communication,
Culture
right?
is a very difficult thing to communicate because it's not just the language. Like nowadays, translation with AI, we're okay with the translation, I think, with most technology, but the culture is a very big challenge. You're absolutely right.
Yes, and I think in our last one, we found out why is there so much slapping in this vertical drama, and we discovered that okay, maybe it comes from what this particular culture felt that Western cultures. There's a lot of slapping in there. I said, oh, that's a very interesting to know. So it is good to understand, okay, this drama originated in China or Korea or some other country. And it's interesting to find out what their concepts of Western behavior is like, and sort of react to that. And also we can, share with them some of our thoughts. I said, oh, maybe not all the
time. maybe 9 slaps instead of 10. We'll get rid of one.
Exactly.
You're absolutely right. There are a lot of slaps that tend to happen in vertical dramas. I've participated in quite a few. I've seen quite a few. Slaps and drink pours, where they'll take the drink and they'll just pour it all the way over the person. I find that very fun. Awesome. So I have a follow-up question. We've talked a lot about verticals as they are now. We've spoken about kind of how to get into them. We've spoken about should an actor get into it. I'd like to move us kind of into the future now. Where do you see verticals in a year's time? And then where would you project them to be 5 years from now compared to where they are?
Actually, I'm taking on the challenge myself. And I and a partner are forming a production company just focusing on verticals.
Wow.
It's called Interlude Picks. And the reason is this, and what you're saying is true. Where will vertical dramas be in a few years? I think if you are a fan of vertical dramas and you go onto the platforms, you will see maybe 10, 15, 20 stories about billionaires, and lots of repeats of probably similar stories,
Yep.
And I think eventually it will exhaust itself. Audiences will get tired of that. And what they want is something new, something exciting. So I think that's what I'm hoping to do with my new production company in terms of creating verticals that are dramatic, funny, uh, supernatural, and to expand the range of repertoire of stories that can be told in the vertical format.
Love this.
Because I think the consensus is that maybe the major audience now is probably female between, I don't know, 25, 45, you know?
Yep.
What do they want to see? You know, I think that is the big question that a lot of the producers are uh, troubling over. And I think audiences, whether they are female or not, you know, and the audience will grow, you know, because I think the females will get their partners to start watching and everybody else will start watching. So I think we'll need to find much more interesting stories, you know, and story arcs that will interest new audiences to this format. Because until the one day that mobile phones will no longer exist, the vertical format will continue to grow. And that's what I see. So I think more great stories and a wider repertoire of stories that will interest greater audiences. And that's what I hope. Because we cannot keep on watching stories and variations of the billionaire saga.
Mm.
I think what is more than billionaire? I think we've gotten rid of millionaires. Now there's billionaire,
Trillionaires,
trillionaire.
quadrillionaires, quintillionaires.
So that's
It
what
just
my
keeps
hope
going up.
is for the future
Mm.
of verticals.
I love that vision. I really really love that vision. I think from the creative side of things, I think every actor or even creative in the industry, producers, directors, writers, everyone. I think there's been a massive surge of comments that I've received about increasing the diversity of stories, of characters, of cast, of everything kind of within the vertical. And the idea that you bring up of just something that is more unique, that is not part of the exhausted existing classic billionaire storyline. I think that that's a wonderful thing, and I'm really excited to see how you do that in the future, and I'd love to be involved in that in some sense. That's awesome. Beyond that, I think that even the fans also
Mm.
have said. I've seen a lot of fan reviews or comments about verticals. In fact, I think I've seen more fan reviews of verticals than I've seen verticals, because I follow all of the fan accounts on Instagram, and that's a brilliant kind of area that you can see the fans actually responding to the verticals and hear their opinions, which is great. And the general consensus is that they want more diverse stories.
Mm.
They want things that are unique and new. And I think looking at it from a process perspective, because I've also spoken to representatives of platforms and all of that. I won't name any names to keep confidentiality in there, but as it stands, the existing reason for why things are typically copies or repeats with like slight adjustments but effectively the same story is because the data suggests that this story worked really well.
Yeah.
So then the logic follows, let's produce 100 of these, and of that 100, a couple of them will go viral or will be successful. So it is kind of that financial argument and that risk aversion towards kind of creating content. But what I love about your position in this is that you are presenting it from a creative point of view. You're not looking at it from let's just like see what worked before and let's rinse and repeat that. I love that your attitude towards this industry is that you see the growth potential and you see that there is more opportunity to do something unique. And I think even experimenting with the frame itself, like all of the shots that we've had in Hollywood for the last 100 years or so, right? All of those shots, like we're still discovering new ways to move the camera and implement technology and do like a creative shot in a blockbuster movie. We can do all of that again, but specifically crafted for a vertical frame. So I think that the opportunity to kind of create something unique in the story, of course, but even just in the use of the vertical frame. You spoke about how it's different earlier in the call and how it changes the blocking. All of those things, I think, are kind of unique parts to this sector of the entertainment industry that have been experimented with a little bit, but have so much more like potential to throw out like unique shots and things like that. So I'm really excited to see where you personally go with that. That's really, really exciting.
I think that as verticals become more established, I think I hope that they will soon be appearing more and more, maybe in international film festivals, and get that kind of recognition, so that the producers, the directors, will say, "Oh, okay, not only can we make some money, but also we are building in prestige, in our
The
portfolio,
prestige, I think, is a
right?"
huge part of it.
And then maybe we can get more investors to come in, and put a bit more money into each project, so that the directors and the vision can be more exciting. Take a little bit more time, 11 days, and
Yeah, make it 11. 10,
yeah,
10's too
and
small.
and I think that's what will help it grow, in story wise and in production values, and I think give the actors much more space to play. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, I very much agree with you. That's very, very exciting. Why did you first get into vertical dramas? How did you
Uh,
join the industry?
I was asked by a friend producer to do it, and I've never done it. I've only done feature films and dramas, so I thought this would be a great learning experience for me, just to dive in and try it. And the more I don't think she told me very much about it at the beginning. I said, "Oh, that's great. Let's do it." I always love to work with her, and then I thought this would be a great experience. And the more she told me about it, the more terrified I became.
Terrified. That's the fear
terrified
you
is
mentioned in the beginning of the conversation.
Terrified is the
Yeah.
word, because of the limitations of time, location, and budget. So, and it sort of reminded me of when I was doing my student films at a New York university to get my degree. And then it's like we just had no resources, no time. We really depended upon the friendships and the associations we made with fellow filmmakers and friends who could sponsor us and everything like that. It was really guerrilla warfare, guerrilla filmmaking,
Wow.
in the NYU days. And I thought, hey, this reminds me of those days. And I said, okay, let's go back to the 1970s and 80s and try to shoot this thing. So
Wow.
that's why I got involved.
And obviously the experience wasn't too traumatizing because you're looking to stay within it.
Yes, I think there's a certain kind of energy and excitement when you are being challenged by the impossible. And I think I can really put that word into it, because I always try to do things and make projects that are really good and that I'm happy with. And this is almost like an impossible task. But with the crew and the cast, I think we made something that we're quite proud of, and I think that's really important. That and it grew a group that we feel that we want to work together in the future, and that's really rewarding. That we became really close, in those 5 to 7 days that
Yeah,
we
because
got
it's
to work
very
together,
intense. It's almost
right?
like a trauma bond.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we worked together and we respected each other and we try to take care of each other. Um, and we came out of it, I think, stronger, and we say, okay, yeah, all right, we can do better, and we will do better next time.
I really like what you mentioned there about the idea of being respectful on set
Mm.
and how that might even translate into future opportunities. I think something that I've mentioned to talent I've spoken to in the past is that the value of your network is going to determine kind of the amount of opportunities you get in the future. And I think that's a really important point for a new actor or even an established actor looking to continue working in this industry is that at a base level, the people that you work with obviously deserve respect because they are humans. They are doing their job, and you all kind of want to collaborate on that base level and form friendships. But even from a selfish perspective, if you want to progress your career, it is so important to make sure that you are actively helping others and contributing to their growth, because an investment in someone else is actually going to translate in their investment back in you in the future. And I think that's a beautiful part of the industry that you're able to kind of take advantage on from a selfless but also a selfish perspective.
I think actors have to be selfish because it is a cruel industry, a very cruel industry. So when you are, I encourage, as I said before, I encourage our actors to do independent features, short films, student films, because these young directors and writers, and production people are the future filmmakers of Australia. And if you work with them when they're beginning, when they're doing vertical dramas, when they're doing their short films or independent features where they have no budget, they have tremendous obstacles, and you work well together with them, they will remember you and they will want to work with you in the future, when they have better budgets, better stories, and things like that. So with verticals, I mean, as we are growing in this vertical industry, when you work with the directors that are also learning, the producers that are also learning, and the result is good, they will remember you and they say, oh yes, please, let's work together in another project, and I think that's how we grow. And it's not selfish. It is really trying to pave the way to a better and better career for yourself, in this really, really unpredictable, cruel industry.
Yep, I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. I think that the way that I run on sets myself is very much that I'm there to do the job on that set, and I do that job the best that I can. But I think that you always have to have that consideration of where is my next job going to come from?
Yeah.
Because as you mentioned, the industry for everyone involved, but from an actor's perspective, the industry is very turbulent. There will be opportunities that I think are set in stone, and then they fall through and the production gets canceled, or you even shoot the production and then it just never releases. That's happened on a vertical set for me in the past. So it's always kind of thinking about how can I use this job to pivot to my next one, and so on and so forth, and keep as many opportunities open as possible. And I think that networking and appreciating the people and investing in the people that you work with is a wonderful way to do that, because everybody wins. If you're able to build chemistry and make friends with another actor that you work with on set, quite often you might even get asked for a recommendation. Oh, who's someone that you can work well with? Because especially with verticals as quick as they are, sometimes you don't have time to build that chemistry with the actor. And it's a real challenge, especially if you have to do a stunt together or an intimate scene together. Producers are going to be more likely to cast two actors that have worked together before, because it reduces that risk profile. It reduces the time that we might have to otherwise kind of slow down and get to know how the actors are going to work together. And further, it just increases the quality of the performance because the actors already kind of trust each other on that front. So the networking and investing in people's careers around you, I think, is really, really important on that front.
I think for all those actors out there, who are concerned about being involved in verticals, I think it is important to know what you're getting into. Right? I think it's important that if you have an agent, to have a good discussion about what's written in the contract, so you know what's going to be happening. What are your payments? What are the things that you need to be able to do and need to do, and have a good read of the script. And no matter what draft it might be in, right? And might not be in the final draft, but you get an idea of what the story is like, what your characters are like, so that when you go in, you go with your eyes open,
Mm.
and that's really important. So please don't be afraid. Just, I think knowledge is power. So when you know what the contract is like, and what the script is like, and check with your friends who have worked with these producers before, and so that
Reference checks, very valuable.
so that's very valuable.
Mm.
So, do your work as an actor, check it out, and then if you feel that, oh, I love this character, I want to try it, then go for it. There's no, don't worry about the stigma or whatever it is, because you are an actor. And look, the world is such a flux with the coming in of AI, with fewer and fewer productions actually being done in Australia, in the feature film or drama arena, take every opportunity you have
Mm.
to practice your craft. But go in there with your eyes open and with knowledge of what you're getting into. That is really important so that you are happy there, you know exactly what's expected, and you will produce your best work to date.
I think that's really important. Something you've raised there also about an actor's boundaries
Yes.
of what roles are you as an actor comfortable with? What would you do on screen? And we touched on intimacy a moment ago as well on that front. And I think that something that I would recommend to actors in that contract stage or looking at the script, one thing that I always ask is what are my requirements regarding intimacy, nudity, and
Mm.
stunts? Because oftentimes the response I'll get when I ask for a script is, oh, it's not finished yet. And it's like, okay, can I have it in its current form? Oh, it's not translated. But I need to sign a contract, but I don't know what I'm getting into, right?
Mm.
So ways that you can kind of work around that if the script isn't finalized, it doesn't mean that you have to lose the job, but rather specifically asking about those things, that gives me as an actor confidence that when I do get the script, everything else is kind of just the lines and the general character. But I should have at the very least the character brief. So I know generally what my character is like a few sentences about where they came from and what their arc is in the story. And then any specific boundaries I might have as a personal, kind of like as an actor, regarding intimacy, nudity, stunts. Verticals don't go full nude, but they might have implied nudity. They might have like intimacy, and it's like, where does that boundary go? Like, how far does it go in terms of, is it just a kiss or is it a full makeout session? Is it just a touch? You know, every actor I feel like has their own set of boundaries, and I think it's really important that you know what those are as an actor. And the reason why I think it's even like crucial to have an understanding of this before you sign the contract is because if you have a certain agreement at the contract stage, then when you get on set, if it's different, you can say, hey, no, 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 no. We discussed this. We agreed to this. And then you as an actor kind of have that security that you know that you have committed to a certain level, and that's that level. I think if the conversation doesn't happen, it's very like challenging because on both sides, I'm not suggesting that the producer might try and be underhanded in this respect, but to protect both parties, if that isn't discussed, one party might assume it's fine and the other party might not really be happy with it at all, and it creates a conflict on set. So I implore any
Mm.
actor who is entering any kind of contract negotiation, and this is vertical drama specific, but I guess with any role really, to make sure that those requirements for those boundaries are like very clear from the beginning, because that is kind of like a high risk profile to me.
I agree. I think as verticals grow and become more mature, right? I think the contracts and the producers will, will actually deal more and more with these particular issues, and I think so that the directors and actors don't have to deal with these kind of problems on set,
Mm.
that these kind of issues will be dealt with long before, any contracts will be signed. But that's what I was saying, that it is important that you and your representative or agent,
Mm.
have a good discussion with the producers, and then about what's actually in the script and what is to be expected of the actor. so that it is so important that the director and the actor have a harmonious relationship, on set, so that they can both adjust either way, to get the best result, but also make the actors feel really comfortable on set. Because when an actor is not comfortable on set, that shows on the screen. That
It does.
definitely shows,
It
right?
really does.
So I think, have a good representative or agent, beforehand. Go through that. I know the time is always very, very short between the presentation of a project to the actor, to the agent, and then the required signing. But I think a good agent will have certain probably clauses or statements that they would say that we need for this to be put into the contract, before we sign it, just to protect our actor and also to protect the project, so that it will have a very smooth running, during this 5 to 10 days that is being shot. So,
And I think that contract conversation that we're talking about is absolutely crucial in terms of keeping that relationship between talent and the director, as you said, harmonious. Because any disagreements of the contract stage that kind of feed into set is going to cause conflict. There's going to be a conflict of expectations, and then you lose the trust. And if you lose the trust, everything slows down, nobody's enjoying it, and it kind of presents a lot of flow-on problems. Whereas if you resolve it kind of in the very beginning, then it's done, it's finished. And whether that means that the requirements of the role don't suit you, and you just don't take the role, and someone who is able to suit those requirements does take the role, then that's fine. But equally, if there were kind of like things that could be adjusted in the beginning, so say like the intimacy was more than you were willing to do, and then in the contract you were able to negotiate down those scenes in advance, then that means that you could still perform the role, and the expectations are kind of set reasonably from both sides by the time you get to set and perform that scene. So I think that's a really powerful thing to make sure that your on-set experience is a success and is a positive. I'd like to ask you a very open-ended question, and it's kind of a closing question. But is there anything that you would like to comment on about vertical dramas that we haven't already discussed, or even re-emphasize a point that you think is really important regarding the industry or actors, something that you're very passionate about?
I grew up. My interest in the industry started as an actor, so that's why I'm in the industry. I started as an actor, and I loved acting, and then also I started to direct, and I found that it's really important for future directors or directors who are now working to have an experience of what it's like to be an actor. That's really important, I think, because once you've maybe had some classes as an actor or had some experiences as an actor, you understand what the actor is going through. And that will help you as a director or as a producer to be able to communicate more clearly what you want, in the film. So I think because we have worked together in an actor director kind of arrangement, I thought that it was wonderful that we got a chance to work together. And I thought, yes, we faced some of those sort of intimacy situation scenes, and I felt I'm not really fussed about it because I felt that in my thinking about those kind of intimate scenes, I felt the act of suggestion is much more powerful, than being really blatant about a lot of stuff. And so that's what my feeling about acting those intimate scenes. Sometimes we can just suggest it, and then the audience will be really entranced and taken into it, versus being very, strongly, blatant about certain movements or actions. So I encourage actors to really be involved, in verticals as a new adventure in the entertainment industry. And I hope you will have a great communication with all directors that you will face in the future, and understand where they're coming from, and also try to do what they are doing, but also keep lines of communication open between you two.
Mm.
And I wish everybody the best in the vertical world that we're entering.
Well, thank you, Jean-Claire, very much for jumping on the call and giving us so much wonderful kind of industry advice and expectations and your thoughts for the future. Very, very exciting stuff. Best wishes as well for your production company,
Thank you.
focusing on the creative side of the vertical storytelling, which I'm personally super passionate about as well. I think that's an awesome, awesome thing that you're doing, and I'm very, very keen to catch up with you in the future, perhaps when you've got a very creative vertical to promote on the podcast. Perhaps we
I would
could
love to be. I would love for you to be involved.
yeah, I'd love to be jumping on that as well. It very much aligns with where I think a lot of the creatives in the industry want the industry to go in terms of steering. So it's a brilliant thing. And I would be honored to be a part of it for sure.